Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome to a rather dank but nice day here in Great Bissenden, where I'm about to embark on another of my classic bike reviews. Now, whenever I do these, I get comments of people saying that's not a classic bike is one that was built in, I don't know, 1965 or something. Well, my definition of classic bikes are bikes that I find interesting or found interesting around the time that I learnt to ride, and therefore were bikes that I didn't actually ride myself. I missed the chance to ride them. And today's bike falls in that category. I'm on a bike that I've often said, you know, I'm not a cruiser man, but the more of these cruisers I ride, the more I've decided perhaps I'm a cruiser man. So this is a cruiser that I'm on today. This is the Suzuki Intruder, and it's the 1500cc variant of the bike. So before we get too much into what the bike is like to ride, let me just park up, show you around the bike, just so you can see the sort of machine that we're dealing with. Alright, so here's the beautiful bike that we're dealing with then, the 2015, in this case, Suzuki Intruder. And obviously, classic V-twin cruiser machine. Absolute beautiful machine if you love polishing your chrome. Let's have a little look around. So to start with, some of the features I like about this are this big old light binnacle on here. I just think that looks fantastic. I just love the styling of the front end on this, but the bar risers in particular as well, the way it sort of rakes back the handlebars, also makes it very comfortable to ride, which more in a moment. Then we've got this massive engine, big V-twin, classic American cruiser style layout, looks absolutely superb, but as I say, you have got to love cleaning your chrome because there's plenty on here to do. As you can see, it's a bit of a scuddy day today that I'm recording this, so sorry that the bike's looking a little bit messy. It was lovely and clean when I got it. Coming around the back here, I think if it was mine, I would probably remove this rack and pannier type cover, although that obviously adds a lot of practicality if you want to take a passenger or indeed you want to go touring on the bike, but that would go for me. It looks better without that, I think. This rear light I really like, reminds me a bit of the one on the Triumph Thunderbird, but I think it looks really cool. And yeah, overall, the styling, the massive fat tank on it, I just think, you know, the indicators, everything about it, I just think looks spot on. The styling on this bike for me is really, really nice. Lose the, as I say, the sissy bar at the back, but otherwise an absolutely beautiful looking machine. I hope you agree. All right, welcome back aboard the mighty Intruder. The name itself is perhaps a little bit dubious, conjures up images of things that perhaps I don't want to have images of. But let's not dwell on that. In the US, I think it's called a Marauder or something like that. It wasn't called a Marauder, it was called the Boulevard in the US, the Boulevard C90. In fact, it's still called the Boulevard in the US, the bike, it's still available there. So it has different names depending on the market that you're in. The bike itself has been around for some time, but in various guises. Morning, sir. The engine capacity has gradually increased. The styling has changed a little bit as well, but it's the classic kind of US configuration, if you like, big V-twin. And I have to say, over the years, I've come to appreciate that look and that whole vibe, for want of a better term. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But while we're on the subject of the engine, let's just take a look at that. Okay, so here's this lovely V-twin engine then, 1462cc, 54 degree V-twin on this one, puts out 70-ish brake horsepower. Now, I have seen varying figures on this one, some say up to 85 brake horsepower, but it's in that sort of league, but a beautiful looking engine anyway. Torque-wise, 84 foot-pounds are the figures of torque on this bike. Again, figures vary, so don't hold it against me if these are slightly different to what your bike is, okay? So yeah, the engine certainly looks all right. What's it like when you ride it though? Well, I have to say, actually, it's a lot smoother than you'd think. I mentioned earlier I like the vibe of this bike, but actually one thing this bike doesn't seem to have are lots of vibes. If you're on a big Harley or something like that, you'd feel the thing rocking and rolling through the handlebars. Not so on this. In fact, you wouldn't really know it's a V-twin. I think I'm in second gear. Let's come down one. Yeah, I was in second. Normally at this sort of speed, I'm doing 40 miles an hour, it'd be lumpy and bumpy on a big V-twin, but not so on the Intruder. Feels lovely and smooth. I don't know what they've done, but yeah, much smoother than other bikes of this type I've ridden. Other bikes by way of comparison like this that I've ridden are things like the Triumph Thunderbird, it reminds me a bit of that, and of course the Harley Fat Boy is a similar sort of style. All of course very, very heavy motorcycles. So yeah, the weight of this particular bike, 363 kilograms. That is pretty heavy by anyone's reckoning. It's kind of the elephant in the room as far as this bike's concerned. Like all these heavy motorcycles, once you get moving though, you don't really feel the weight. You do feel the weight when you're at slower speed. Certainly if you go around a corner at slow speeds, it feels to me like it wants to sort of tip in a little bit. Getting a wave through here, thank you sir. But generally speaking, very easy to ride. Riding position is classic foot forward cruiser. Again, something I've often criticised in the past, but this doesn't actually feel as extreme as it maybe looks. I don't know if you can see on the 360 camera the angle my leg is at here. They are definitely pointed out front, but it doesn't feel as extreme as, say, the Harley Fat Boy. It's actually quite comfortable. I'm not sure how comfortable it would be on a long tour. I mean, this bike would be great for touring actually. This particular one's fitted with those it's got a rack and the side bag case fixture points, so it would be great for touring in that respect. But comfort wise, I'm not sure how long your back would thank you for sitting in this position with your feet forward, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with the seat and the layout comfort wise. The seat in fact is very, very comfortable. Let me show you that now. So here is the seat then, massive padding on this and a massive old pad as well, really wide, cups your buttocks a treat this one. I find this very, very comfortable as the rider. So the seat is good for me. I'm sure it is also comfortable for a passenger. Unfortunately I've not got the chance to try that out. And then the handlebars, lovely and wide as you can see. I love this this kind of cruiser layout you got here with these massive bar risers that mean you are actually sitting fairly well upright. You're not leant that far forward, but you're not sitting bolt upright either, which I think takes a little bit of the weight off your back. So I'm willing to believe it's a bit more comfortable than other cruisers of this type I've ridden. And then in terms of what you're looking at, instrumentation wise, I love what they've done here. They've got this set of idiot lights on the tank here. Reminds me a bit of some of the Indians I've ridden. I think it was Indians anyway. And then you've just got your speedo and a few bits and pieces in the digital gauge like your odo and your fuel gauge on the front there. It's a lovely little instrument binnacle. I think it looks really good. It feels like a quality machine, this. What I love about it is if you're not precious about brand names, and by which I mean probably Harley, you can get a bike like this with all the fun of a Harley, all the grin factor, but at much less cost. Bikes like this at Superbike Factory are going for around about £6,500. I'm recording this in late November. I know you're not watching this probably until end of January time, so this bike's probably gone now, but go check out superbikefactory.co.uk, sponsors of the channel who lent me this bike, so thank you to you guys, and see how many of these they've got in. There's always a handful of these available, and as I say, they're around about the £6,500 mark. When these were new, they were nearer 12 grand, so massive saving. And when you compare them with things like Harleys, well, massive savings. You wouldn't get a second-hand Harley for that sort of price, nor would you get this smooth riding that you're getting on this. Oh, sorry, camera moved there as I wound her up. The torque on here is immense, as it is with all these big V twins. One of the things that actually the bike was criticised about when it came out was that it didn't have enough torque, but I can't see that myself. It seems pretty darn torquey to me. These aren't the sort of bikes, of course, that you want to go herring around on like you would a sports bike at high speed. They're all about cruising, of course, at lower speeds. So I would say, you know, between 30 and 70 are where these bikes are best. Anyway, I'm doing 50 at the moment behind this truck. I'm a bit stuck behind it, unfortunately. And yeah, it feels just absolutely brilliant. Always turning off, excellent news. The exhaust on this have got a lovely deep rumble. It's not offensive. It's not that ridiculous V-twin noise that you sometimes hear with aftermarket exhausts. I think these are the original Suzuki exhausts on here, and they sound just right to me. Just that lovely lazy burble noise. Great fun in the summer. A real problem with this camera moving around today. Hope you've managed to see me all right through this video, because of course, it being a big naked bike, you are getting the airflow in your face, and with your feet forward, up your trouser legs a bit as well. It's not a very warm day today. It's about 8 degrees centigrade, and there's no heated grips on here either. So yeah, more of a summer bike, I'd say. And actually, it's a little bit slippery on these roads. Look, there's still some autumn leaves here, which are really late this year, and it's been wet, raining overnight, so I really don't want to thrash it around the corners, but handling wise it feels all right to me. I thought I was going to have to really muscle it around, it being a long bike with quite a raked out front end, but it's actually right. It handles much better than many other bikes of this type that I've tried. This bike is really surprising me. These bikes, these big cruisers, you never expect to handle amazingly well. You never expect them to feel light, because that's not what they're about. But this one actually, it runs smoother than I expected, it handles better than I expected, and it goes better than I expected, frankly. Let me just try the brakes on here. Yeah, the front brake you have to really give quite a wrench to, and I'll show you why that is. And I think this is why you have to haul the brake quite hard, is because you've got, although you've got twin discs on the front, they are actually quite small, these discs, and it's only got 2-pot calipers as well, albeit on the twin disc, but you do have to give them quite a haul to make the thing stop. At the back end, again, you've got a single disc, which is usually the case, and again a 2-pot caliper on the back there. Often you get a single pot, but you've got a 2-pot on this one. All right, so welcome back aboard. Let's just try that back brake. If I can get my foot on it. The back brake's okay. No back brakes are great on bikes, are they? But that one just does a reasonable job of straightening things out in the corners if you overcook it or something. But providing you're careful, you plan your riding, then the brakes are adequate. I mean, there's no, as I mentioned, no ABS or traction control or anything like that, so you've got to ride carefully on these. Physics is always there, and on these more old school bikes you don't have any electronics to help you out. In fact, on the electronics front on this bike, there aren't really any electronics. The only electronics I can find are basically the starter, and that's it. So you've got to be responsible for your riding. Some people think that's a good thing. I tend to agree, actually. But what it does mean is it's a very simple bike. So on the controls front, look, you've got your start button, and on this side your indicators, your horn, hazard lights, and your lights, and that's it. They're all nice and positive to feel. You know when you've pressed them. I like that about the bike. Sometimes simple is good. Thank you, sir. Let me out ahead of him, very nice of him. Clutch actually is a lot lighter than other comparable bikes that I've ridden. And the gearbox, actually a lot less clunky than a Harley. The gearbox is actually quite, well, I'm not going to say silky, but it's not far off. I have a real problem when I do these classic bike reviews, because I'm lucky enough, being a YouTuber, to ride all the latest and greatest motorcycles, and some of the modern bikes are absolutely amazing, aren't they? And I love to ride them. I love riding all bikes. But as soon as you jump on one of these slightly older machines, you realise actually how good they are too. And this Suzuki Intruder is no different. Desperately trying to find something I don't like about it. Well, there's nothing really. If it was mine, I'd probably look to get some heated grips installed. Although if you're only riding it in the summer, that wouldn't matter. I don't think I'd bother with an aftermarket exhaust, because it's nice and, as I say, it's got a nice note about it, this, but it's not obnoxious, so I wouldn't touch that. There's nothing you can do about the weight of the bike. I mean, it'd be nice to have some sort of reverse gear, I guess, because that would be a problem. Moving it in and out of the garage is a bit tricky. It's got that lovely low seat on here, and my advice to anyone doing that is to sit on the bike and move it if you're a smallish or weakish fella like I am. I'm 5'8", 11 stone, and moving big bikes around like this I do find quite difficult in the garage. So that's one black mark, but that's comes with the turf, I guess. Something else I very much like about this bike are these mirrors. They look like mirrors that come off of a car, actually, don't they? But they work brilliantly well. In fact, the left-hand mirror, I've got such a good view out the back of me, more so than the right-hand mirror, which isn't usually the case, is it? No blurring on the mirrors. Great view behind, and I think they look cool as well. So yeah, an awful lot of bike for your money. It's one of those bikes you can enjoy in the summer, just cruising around the lanes. You can take it on holiday to do your annual bike tour. Hello. You could use it day to day if you wanted to, although I don't think it would be my ideal choice as a commuter or a get me to work bike. Hello, hazard lights on in the front. What's he up to? Let's get around him then. I think for me it'd be like a second bike in the garage for summer use. It'd be perfect for that, and maybe a bit of touring. And for around about 6.5 grand, pretty flipping difficult to beat. What else is there to say about the bike? Alright, only things I don't think I've covered off are things like the seat height, which on this bike is 720mm, so nice and low. You can get your legs perfectly, or your feet perfectly flat on the ground with a bend in your legs, which is really quite useful for a bike of this weight. And the other thing is the fuel tank capacity on there. Although it looks massive, I think it's only a 17-litre tank on here, which isn't anywhere near as huge as it looks, but there you go. And then the only other thing to mention is the clutch on here is actually a slipper clutch, and in terms of colour schemes that these things came available in the year 2015, it only came in black, but luckily it looks fantastic. So to sum up, the Suzuki Intruder 1500 then, this 2015 model, I really like it. It surprised me. I thought it would give me a laugh. I thought I'd have a grin on my face, which is why I asked Superbike Factory if I could borrow it. I just fancied to go on it. I've always liked the look of it. But it actually rides and feels much better than I thought. I've got that same grin on my face that I'd have if I was riding a Harley at a fraction of the price. Huge thanks to the guys at Superbike Factory, sponsors of the channel, for lending me the bike. Do go and check out their website. I'll put a link below to the website. It's superbikefactory.co.uk. If you've not been there before, it's a brilliant site. Superbike Factory are the biggest second-hand motorcycle dealers, I think, in Europe. They've got around about 2,000 bikes in stock at any one time. Their website is brilliant. You just stick in the model of bike that you want, and up pops all the stock that they've got. And you name the bike from the last sort of 20 years, the chances are they've got a handful or more of those bikes available. In most cases they can deliver to your door as well, so you don't even have to go and visit them if you find a bike you fancy. I spend hours just looking at the website. It's great fun just doing that. Anyway, I've really enjoyed riding the Intruder today, even though it is a bit chilly. Hope you've enjoyed the review. If you've ridden one of these, or you've got one, do comment below and let me know what you think of the bike, any lessons you've learnt having owned the bike, and that way we can build a useful a useful resource for people that are maybe thinking about looking into buying one of these themselves. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you've not done so already. I don't just do bike reviews here on the Missenden Flyer. Well, trips and tours at home and abroad, bits and pieces about looking after your bike, basically anything and everything to do with motorcycles. I'll try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It'd be great to have you along next time. Alright, until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.